Hey guys, Timbo here. This is part 2 of my Building Blocks of Doubles Tech tutorial series. In today's video we're going to be talking about the second of the one beat shapes, which will be a 4-pedal antispin. For those of you who are unfamiliar with that terminology, antispin is when your staff or whatever other prop you may be using is rotating in the opposite direction that your arm is rotating. And when we're talking about flower shapes, the amount of petals in a flower shape are going to be the amount of loops or lobes you're producing in the shape, or the amount of points you're focusing on when you're creating the shape. So today we're going to be working on the 4-pedal antispin, which focuses on those same 4 cardinal points of the diamond that we used in the last video when we were working on isolations. If you remember from the last video, when we were performing isolations, we're focusing on those points and which direction our thumb is facing when we're on each of those points. In the isolation, if you start on any one of the 4 points with your thumb pointing out, it will also be pointing out on every one of the other points. If you're doing a 4-pedal antispin, if you were to start on one of the vertical points with your thumb pointing out, when you come to the horizontal points, your thumb will be facing in. So on each step of a 4-pedal antispin, you're going to be alternating from thumb in to thumb out. So if you were to start on the bottom with your thumb facing in, on the sides your thumb will be facing out. And if you started with your thumb facing out on the bottom, on the sides your thumbs will be facing in. You'll also notice that when you're performing a 4-pedal antispin, on each step of the shape, the inside wick is going to be pushing to the outside, and the outside wick is going to be pulling into the center. You'll also notice as that's happening, when this outside wick is pulling down to the center, it's traveling along this straight vertical line. And as it's coming from this side point, that outside wick is traveling across this straight horizontal line. You may also notice as I'm performing this move, I'm utilizing rotating the staff in front of and behind my arm to avoid having to finger spin. Not using finger spins at all, or strictly using finger spins, is definitely just a personal preference thing. I prefer to try not to use them if I don't have to. You definitely run into situations where it is 100% necessary to finger spin, but in simple movements like this, I prefer to try to not finger spin. There are 2 slightly different ways to avoid using finger spins and 4-pedal antispins. You're going to utilize each one based on whether or not your thumb is pointing in or out on the top and bottom points. We'll go through each one step by step. So first, if we started on the bottom point with our thumb pointing out, and I kind of have the staff tucked around my wrist a little here, I'm going to push the inside wick to the outside, and now my thumb is pointing in here. And now I'm going to push the inside wick to the outside again, and my thumb is pointing up on the top. And here's where it gets a little weird to avoid the finger spin. As this inside wick is pushing out again and this top wick is falling down to the center, you're going to let it fall behind your arm into the buzzsaw plane so that you can avoid that finger spin right there. And then push that inside wick to the outside again, thumb pointing down, it's tucked behind my wrist again. So one more time, thumb in, thumb out, thumb in as it's falling down to the buzzsaw plane, and then thumb out again on the bottom. Now the other one is only slightly different. So starting with your thumb pointing in on the bottom, I'm going to rotate the opposite direction this time just because it feels a little more comfortable for me. So I'm going to push the inside to the outside. Now my thumb is pointing out on the side. I'm going to push the inside to the outside, and my thumb is pointing in on the top. And here's where this one gets weird also. What's going to happen here is as this inside wick pushes to the outside, it's going to pass over my arm to avoid that finger spin, and now my thumb is pointing out there. So now back down to the beginning, thumb pointing in, thumb out, thumb in, and then passing behind the arm, thumb out, and thumb in on the bottom. So if we add the second staff in there, just like in the last video with isolations, we can apply this to any of the normal timings and directions or the quarter timings and directions. We'll start off with together same because it's a little bit easier. So if we started on the bottom here again with both thumbs pointing out, we're going to move, when we move to the right side here, I'm going to push the center wicks to the outside, and now both my thumbs are pointing in. Now I push the center wicks to the outside, Both thumbs are pointing out at the top, pushing the center ribs to the outside again and falling down into the buzzsaw plane. Both my thumbs are pointing in, thumbs out, thumbs in, thumbs out, thumbs in, thumbs out on the bottom. And you'll notice that on both, when I have both staves on both sides, side points, the staves are in the buzzsaw plane to avoid using finger spins. And just like with the isolations, you really want to try to maintain a well-defined center point for this. So when these outside wicks are pushing to the center each time, you want to make sure they're actually hitting that same center point where you were holding the staff on your chest in the isolations. After you get comfortable with that, try it in the other direction, try turning again. And just like with the isolations, you really want to get comfortable with doing this in every timing and direction, because it's only going to make it easier later on to apply it to more complex things like hybrid shapes. Together same. Together opposite. Split same. Split up. Quarter same.